Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Water Ambassador Program. We're pleased to be presenting our April webinar for you today. As a reminder, the Water Ambassador Program is a partnership program brought to you by Martin County and the University of Florida IFAS Extension Florida Sea Grant Program. We have a number of great presentations coming up in May, June, and July. So we will be posting the link in the chat box for you if you want to register. And this way you can stay up to date with our monthly webinar series. As a reminder, for those of you who may not be familiar with the Zoom platform. Sorry, everyone, I'm having screen issues today. We do ask that you stay unmuted, and if you have bandwidth issues that you do not use your video, you can see who is participating by clicking on the participant box, and we suggest that you use the use the side-by-side mode to be able to see the screen. The screen that will allow you to see the presenter and the slides with the best resolution. And if you need to leave us at any reason, just click the leave meeting button on the bottom right-hand side. Yeah, I'm sorry, everyone. I'm having computer issues right now. So is this frozen on your side?
Yeah.
It's frozen.
Going to black. Parts of it are going black.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to stop sharing so that you don't see that. And I apologize to everyone. And instead, I am going to introduce, unfortunately, you won't see our slide, but I'm going to introduce our presenter for you today, Ms. Nerissa Okiye. Nerissa is the Tourism Director for Martin County Office of Tourism and Marketing, and she's going to be presenting on the economic impact of harmful algal blooms in Martin County. Nerissa is responsible for the development and implementation of Martin County's marketing, publicity, and promotion campaigns, all designed to stimulate the growth of tourism. She moved to Martin County from Georgia, where she served as Director of Research for the Georgia Department of Economic Development, the state's lead governmental organization for promoting marketing and supporting economic growth. There, she was responsible for tracking the success and health of the tourism industry in the state of Georgia. She also acted as a liaison between Georgia's public, private, and industry tourism partners and state efforts. Nerissa has worked with Georgia Department of Economic Development within the tourism division for 13 years. And prior to her appointment with the state, Nerissa worked several years at the Swiss Hotel in Atlanta. She also served as a special assistant to the governor of the United States Virgin Islands and has worked with tourism and hospitality industry for over 21 years. She currently serves on the board of directors for the Southeast Tourism Society and Destinations International Small Destination Organization Membership Subcommittee. A native of the U.S. Virgin Islands and a graduate of the University of Massachusetts, Nerissa holds dual bachelor's degrees in psychology and sociology. So I'm so happy to have her present to you all today on the economic impacts of harmful algal blooms in Martin County. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Nerissa, and apologies for my computer glitches.
No problem at all. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And hopefully everybody can see the slide that talks about the economic impact of harmful algal blooms.
Yep, looks great.
Okay, perfect. Because I also have lots of computer issues here. So we're going to look at this from the lens of the tourism industry. And I thought one of the best ways to kind of go through this is right before I started in 2013, there was a very bad algal bloom that had taken place, and I wasn't here, but I was here for 2016. So I kind of wanted to walk through 2016, what that looked like from a tourism standpoint, some of the advocacy programs we did, and what led up to the tourism industry and the Tourism Development Council, investing in this report so we would actually have an understanding of the economic impact. So as she said, we're here in Martin County and we're part of the county government. Our mission is to promote overnight visitation to Martin County, inspire first-time visitation, and engage with returning visitors. Oh, sorry about that. And the reason that tourism is important to us for the most part is individuals come to our community, they spend money, and then they leave, they go back home. So that's where we're able to get a benefit from people that are coming to visit our area. And they're not necessarily as much of a burden on the system in terms of the revenue that's generated. So we wanted to look at the tourism impact in Martin County, or I wanted to kind of go through what that looks like here in Martin County. So this is the latest study we have on the economic impact of tourism in Martin County. And if we look at the average number of households and the amount of state and local tax generated, because of out-of-state visitors, we get this information from Visit Florida, and they only track out-of-state visitation. So the impact here directly locally is much higher because we have a very high percentage of in-state visitation. But in looking at out-of-state visitation, our households pay almost $1,000 less, or we'd have to fill that hole if this spending wasn't coming into our area. And this is what it looks like in terms of that spending breakdown with lodging, food and beverage, shopping, gas, entertainment, recreation, ground transportation, etc. So how are we structured? We collect between, depends on the year, but about $2.8 million. And we are solely funded off of bed tax. So visitors that come and stay in our hotels or stay in our vacation rentals are charged a bed tax, a lodging tax. Anywhere you go throughout the US and the world, there's usually a lodging tax that's associated with it. And that money goes back to the marketing of the area. So it's kind of a cycle. Here in Martin County, however, about 45% of all bed tax generated goes directly to the beaches and inlets. So $400,000 of bed tax that's generated by tourists goes to our beaches, and $500,000 goes directly to the inlet. In the past, we have had a tourism capital program that ran between 2016 and 2017. And with that, tourism tax funded Florida Oceanographic Coastal Center to the tune of $525,000, U.S. Sailing Center, $345,000, and the Treasure Coast Wildlife Center for a little over $214,000. 12% of all tourism tax goes to sports or sports marketing and has been used for a variety of infrastructure improvements that our residents are able to take advantage of, but therefore events that are coming here. So you'll see it's high-speed internet, scoreboard, speaker systems, and fencing. So we're going to start with 2016 and what that looked like. So January of 2016, we were so excited because we were in the running for Coastal Living's happiest seaside town. That is something that everybody got behind and everybody gets to vote. Water quality was looking good. It was rainy at this point, and I've throughout the course of working here, I've come to notice La Nina, El Nino, water events. These are things that we start tracking very early so we can see what's happening. Then March hit, or February hit, excuse me. And in February was the first time that the discharges, at least we had seen, had started coming so early, and they were so frequent because the lake level was so high. And so what we really wanted to do is we launched a new advocacy campaign, and we wanted to get individuals, because we're very passionate about what we have here in Martin County, and we're very lucky to live where we are. I'm raising a family here, as is, most people you move here and you fall in love with the area. But we wanted people to know the way they could speak up and advocate for what was going on. And this was the first video that we will play that kind of talked about tying it to tourism. So hopefully this plays.
Hey, Nerissa, is
Yeah.
there sound or music associated with the video? It's not coming through.
Sound isn't
on-
coming through. We can stop it. We'll skip the rest of the videos. I'll just finish up with this one. This is the longest of the videos. Sorry about that. So there's a music tune that goes along with it, but you hopefully could read along with it, and I can send that separate. Oh, there we go. And we'll skip the videos if the sound isn't coming through from those. So no, we don't want to play it again. Sorry. So we ran into a situation where and that was actually the second video. We had the first one that talked about the oceans cleansing the water and the beaches, because the algae had not hit the beaches yet. And in the past, blue-green algae had never hit our beaches. However, this is March as we go through the progression, and the discharges kept coming and things were getting continually worse. We found out in April that we did win Coastal Living's Happiest Seaside Town. And the impact of that is we got a 3-page spread. At that time, a full page in Coastal Living was $80,000 a page, and we didn't have to pay for anything with this 3-page spread. So it was great exposure to our area. So then I'm not going to play this video since we had problems before, but in June, situation was continuing to erode. We launched another advocacy campaign. We launched this one with Downtown Stewart and Stewart Main Street, the DBA and Main Street. And this was a contest where we wanted people to snap pictures of Martin County. And then with those pictures, that's the only information that we were using to market the area. So we didn't want to use any of our prior pictures that may not be accurate. We really wanted to be transparent with what was taking place here. Oh, no, sorry. And then Coastal Living had come. Now this had been planned way before we knew how bad conditions were going to come. It was a great opportunity for us. We were the first and only Florida town to win #1 in terms of Coastal Living's Happiest Seaside Town. It's the first time Coastal Living team had gone to an area. And when we look at the total cost, we used bed tax again, and it was very minimal in terms of the cost of getting the group here. At that time, then they came down here in June, and these numbers have changed. Coastal Living has changed in terms of it's no longer published as much, but the audience was very significant in terms of what they had and the exposure we were getting with this. This is what they did when they were here. They opened up their social media channels to us. So we had complete access to promote our area with Coastal Living. And some of the comments here are really sweet. You see one that said, "We need to go to Stewart. I've never been here. It's only 2 hours away." We did a Facebook Live. You can see in the bottom corner where they're pouring the fudge, and somebody said, "I just moved. I'm so happy that Kilwins delivers." So this was making an impact directly to our businesses and getting people to come here, come to Frankenstein's, the original local hot dog and cold beer spot. So we had some great comments that were coming through. However, rightfully so, we were not necessarily happy because conditions were continuing to erode. So we had an event planned for Coastal Living where they were going to be honored at Rocking River on a Sunday, and a protest was established during that time. This is a picture from that protest here. These are the comments that we were getting on our Facebook page as well as Coastal Living's Facebook page. And it's important to understand, we know that people were frustrated. Coastal Living is a lifestyle publication. They are not National Geographic. They are not a factual or scientific based magazine. They were a lifestyle travel inspiration website. And I know that people felt that we needed to be doing more, having Coastal Living do more. But at this point, we're trying to get as much positive exposure as we can on the area for when conditions would get better. We lost a lot of opportunities with this. We told Coastal Living to shut down their social channels. We did not go live for Rock and River. We did not do a surfing Facebook Live. We did not do any of impressions. I mean, we did not do many Instagram posts because what we were also getting attacked for having them here. Coastal Living was getting attacked as well. So there was a negative economic impact on that. So what we didn't know and what continued to happen, and we'll go through these just so you can kind of see what was looking at. In July, conditions continued to deteriorate. These are the headlines for over the July 4th weekend. You can see from the Telegraph, CNN, we have one from BBC here, just looking at the headlines you could see, New York Times, NPR. It was a lot that was taking place, and we were trying to figure out our strategy of getting people to speak up to the St. Lucie wasn't necessarily working. So we created an entire new website called Protect Our Paradise in 2016. And it was very transparent in terms of lots of common questions. What is blue-green algae? What is microcystin? We worked very closely with our ecosystems division here who had the factual information so that we could make sure that we were telling the story as it was. And then we had a lot of different itineraries where people who were coming or wanted to do different things could go to the attractions, and we had stuff to do outside of the water. This goes through our photo contest that we launched and what that looked like. We ended up getting 1,300 pictures associated with that, which were positive pictures of here and now conditions. And this slide I just put up because we're going to go back to this slide. So this was towards the end of July. So then this really led us to where we are now in terms of how do we determine the economic impact of this situation? What is the perception? How long is it going to last? What are the opportunities? What are the tips? How do you continue to move forward? One, we knew transparency was key, but what is this going to look like long term? So we at least knew, okay, if this continues to happen every couple of years, how much money do we need to set aside for crisis management, advocacy campaigns, or rebound campaigns when conditions improve? So this report was released the following year in 2017. And the one thing we found out, and this is a 2017 report, so things have changed, but at that time, environmental disasters had a larger and longer economic impact than health crisis. The pandemic and COVID have changed everything. So I'm sure if we looked at it now, health crisis would be a much higher or longer term impact. But this is how long it took at that point in 27 for visitors to want to return to a place. And what did that look like? So when you look at a crisis, the rebound is much slower for destinations where that took place. And this is environmental impacts. So for Martin County, while Florida was continuing to accelerate that year, and they went up 4.5% in terms of hotel occupancy and the growth, we went down. So we did not have that, that projected revenue growth. We did not have the room demand that we anticipated. And it was a $4.8 million hit for that year. And this is what that looked like in terms of accommodation sales. Again, this is based on hotel revenue, and it's from the tourism standpoint. Then we also look at the impact in terms of tourism. When you look at tourism as an economic engine, there's a lot of factors that are added to that or given credit towards tourism in terms of the staff at, say, a restaurant, everybody who works in it, all the auxiliary spending that takes place with hospitality. So this is in millions what it looked like in terms of, and this was just for that last year. But for us, the concern was not only was it a loss of, okay, maybe you lost 47 jobs in total, but are we going to lose tourism product, which we did. We had several outfitters that closed business and they're still not open. So when we rebound and you don't have the outfitters, and by outfitters, I mean the paddleboard companies, the water-based activities, they're no longer there. The expectation of your destination changes. If you come to town and there isn't anything to do, you're more likely not to return to somewhere where you aren't able to do the activities that you had planned when you were on your vacation. So then we look into the long-term effects of the algae bloom. And this is looking at the actual impact. If we had no crisis, how we would have gone up, the 5-year impact, the 2-year impact. We looked at hotel spending in terms of what it would look like if the crisis continued to happen year over year or for varying years, in the 5-year impact. And then we also wanted to look at the impact of the media as well as we looked into that. So this is kind of where we're at. And it said the final findings were it could be, a loss of over 100,000 room nights, $33 million if the additional discharges continue to take place. And this is what it looked like from Martin County. Again, this is just Martin County economic impact of the crisis. So the takeaways from the study were, it can be great. They can last a lot. I mean, they are very impactful, negatively impactful. They can last a long time. A 10% reduction in visitation is not uncommon. And we might have potential permanent setbacks just from the perception. So our job was to be honest with potential travelers and media, be prepared to respond to future crisis, and to promote what is open for business and ready for guests. So that was 16, 17, looking at the impact, and then 2018 hit. And 2018 was blue-green algae and red tide. And for the first time, well, not for the first time, excuse me, I'm definitely not scientific, but they said it was fairly uncommon for red tide to actually go all the way to the East Coast. So we had the blue-green algae and we had red tide. And at that point, Visit Florida took over and they started tracking. So this is an overview of when you start tracking how many times Florida is mentioned with red tide, how many mentions there are. And they were trying to put an economic impact in terms of the negative media value to what was taking place. And this is, again, kind of like the reports that were being sent through, comments, they were tracking everything. So Visit Florida did reports for each of these counties, because each of these counties, each square is a destination in here. And they did reports for each of us, kind of looking at what the media landscape was. And I'll walk you through. This was Martin County's. At this point, we had 201 mentions of red tide. And this is kind of what it looked like there. So we did the third advocacy video, this advocacy campaign at this point. Visit Florida actually granted funding for this to help with the rebound efforts. So this is still on our website right now, where you can take a quiz to find out your local persona. All local personas were tied to a water-based operator. And then we did independent videos for the companies you see listed there, because they were the ones that were being impacted the most. When water quality is down, people are not going to do water-based activities. So we did a promotional video for all of them and then gave copies to it. And then we used it to promote when the water conditions had improved. So this was just, this just came out last year, and it looked at 2018. And at first they looked at Southwest Florida only, and then they extrapolated it out. And they're saying in terms of 18, the industry had a $317 million impact in terms of the decrease in revenue for Florida. Unexpected outcomes. So I mentioned Coastal Living and the fact that they are a lifestyle publication and they're a travel publication, they're an inspiration publication. They got protested when they were here. It was a unique and challenging experience. But for the first time in Coastal Living's history, the travel editor was supposed to write an article on Florida's gifts. And Coastal Living had challenged her with, it's the gift guide. You can see the first slide talks about where to stay, where to eat, what to do in Florida. And she changed that. And she did an entire article on Florida's true gifts, talking about how important Florida is in terms of the natural beauty, the conservation that needs to be done in the area, the fragile ecology of the area. And it was a beautiful, beautiful piece. And that is the outcome of her actually coming here and understanding the situation that we were going through here. So then I will end on this slide and then we can open it up for questions. This is a picture that was this was an article from 2016, but until the problem is complete, or until the problems are not complete, until we're addressing these problems effectively and we're doing all that we can, slimy green beaches really may become Florida's new norm. And tourism is the #1 industry here in Florida. I think it became fairly apparent during the pandemic when tourism went away. Businesses were closing, restaurants were shutting down. There was no residual spending in the area, and that greatly impacted the entire economy that we're used to. So with that, that's the presentation. I can go back through any of those slides. As we said, the ongoing impact was they thought to be 100,000 room nights lost. Based on Florida continuing to go up, Martin County staying stagnant, it puts us in a very difficult situation.
All right, thanks, Nerissa. So I'm looking through the chat right now. I was going to ask, with the video and the report, are there web links to that? Would you be able to paste those into the chat?
The videos, yes. The website, the report, it's posted on one of the websites. I can get that though and send that out. Yeah, definitely. Let me get the videos.
And if we can't get that during this time here, we can email that to everybody here as well.
Okay.
I do have a question. While I'm going through the chat, Lisa just put up an evaluation. So for our presentation in the Water Ambassador series. So please fill that out. And while you're doing that, I'll go through the chat here. And again, feel free to type in any questions you have in the chat. So one question that I'm curious about, Nerissa, is how do the current economic data as it stands now from, I guess, from now and back into, I guess, whenever the projections covered, how does the current data compare with those projections from the 2016 study?
See, it's beyond with COVID. It's not even a comparison. I mean, it's
right.
COVID changed the environment, so we can't look accurately at it. We've had a hotel that's opened in the past. So from a revenue standpoint, we're doing really well, but we haven't had a crisis since 18, knock on lots of wood, and COVID, everything was shut down. Florida was one of the first places to open up. So many people came here. Our revenue we could have never anticipated where we are right now. The rates at the hotels, and it's not even occupancy. I know people get frustrated when there's a lot of people here during season or everything, but it's the rates the hotels are able to command that's driving our bed tax is up 57%, and it's up 54% over FY19, and FY19 was one of the best years. So it's unfortunate, and we haven't done or gone back to do another study. One, from a tourism standpoint, our job is to market the destination, and we spent a significant amount of money to understand the economic impact of the discharges so we could move forward. We got the projections put in there looking forward, but it's not a study that we would necessarily repeat over and over again, because we're taking funds that are used or earmarked for one thing to use them for something else. And our TDC approved that. They wanted to better understand it. And a long way to say we don't know. We can't compare it because of COVID, I would say.
Yeah.
If we stripped COVID out, we might be able to have a better understanding, but COVID changed everything.
Yeah, COVID, and then like as you pointed out, we haven't had a similar scenario in the last few years. Hopefully we won't. But
yeah, they said in 16 it was the first time the algae had hit the beach. It had never hit the beaches before, and that's just what our ecosystems department told me. And then in 18 we had red tide. We did not have blue algae on the beaches.
So I'm gonna look through the chat here real quick.
And I'm pulling the videos.
Okay, cool, thank you. And also, Lisa put the registration links to our future webinars. So if you like what we're doing, please visit us again, and hopefully we'll see you all again. And of course, all the recordings are available on the web link that Lisa posted here. And oh, here we go. Here's a question from Joe. The freshwater discharges are also damaging, but not studied for economic impact. Seagrass loss, fishing, so the algae, yes, it's visible, but there's other environmental impacts as well. And I'm wondering if and it sounds like Joe's question is asking whether those are considered as well or have been considered as well.
No, so that's why I said the economic impact is much larger, especially if you look at the commercial fishing industry, and if you look at the long-term loss of our fisheries and our ecology here. We just looked at the tourism impact. So it was a small sliver because we use bed tax to look at, okay, what is this doing for us? What is the negative impact on this? And even when Visit Florida did their study and their information, and they granted us for the videos and the campaign that we created, they gave us money to do that. They had looked only at the negative media value. So it's a very narrow lens that we looked at it from. So that figure, and even I think the figure that I popped up before of 2018 with the red tide of a negative impact of 317 million, that's still only, I think, through that narrow lens in terms of what that looked like. And it does not take everything into effect, excuse me.
Right, right. And I will say, towards that question as well, is especially with seagrass and its impact on fisheries. I think that story is probably being written, kind of as we speak. So hopefully, it won't be as bad as you might think, but we'll see. I got one more question here from Terry. In accordance with development in Martin County, where do I find more info on resolving this issue? And by issue, I'm assuming the algae blooms and economic impact of those algae blooms. Yes, so, thank you, Terry.
For us, martin.fl.us, so martin.florida.us is the county website. We have protectourparadise.com. Right now, again, knock on wood, since we're not having a freshwater discharge issue, that front page is going to be about our reef program and how to safely interact with the reef. So Protect Our Paradise has evolved since it was launched in 2016 to be just focused on harmful algae blooms and answering those questions, to now there is a COVID section, there is a reef ambassador section, and then there's an industry section. So you can find some of that on protectourparadise.com. If you go to the top bar and you'll see water quality or water impact. But martin.fl.us, if you put in the search bar what you're looking for, that's the county website. Speak Up for the St. Lucie is still active on Facebook. I don't think they're posting as much on it. I know somebody was charged with keeping that kind of updated to see where we are and if there was any action that needed to be done. The first video really talked about directing people from the tourism website to Speak Up to the St. Lucie or to those areas where you could advocate, rather than being on the tourism webpage, which is consumer facing. And like in 18, it was very interesting in the beginning of these, I don't know what you want to call them. And then the beginning of these crisis situations, it's very local focused. So it's impacting the locals more than it is the visitors. So the visitors aren't necessarily seeing the canals or where the algae starts to pop up because they're on the beaches or they're doing other things. And the whole purpose of the campaign was to say, hey, we are open for business, because if we don't let people know that we're open for business, we're going to lose businesses. We lost a paddleboard company in 2016. They were in the Manatee Pocket and they left. and then they moved over to the West Coast. And then unfortunately, red tide hit on the West Coast, and they just had to close business completely. It was coastal paddleboarding. It was just a tragic, awful story. And they're the nicest individuals. They actually had worked with Lisa, who's the owner of Zeke Surf and Paddle. And Zeke Surf and Paddle was able to survive it more so because she has a location. She's not based at the Manatee Pocket. She has a location in Stewart, and she takes people and meets people to different locations. So the outfitters that we have now are very movement dependent, are very movement conscientious. Like they know where to take you paddleboarding. They know where not to take you paddleboarding. They know what the conditions are, down to not even water quality conditions, but wind conditions. Like, no, we can't paddle there. We can paddle here. We can do this. We can kayak there. So long way to say martin.fl if there's any information there, and then Protect Our Paradise. You can check that out, but it's not going to be as updated. We switched that on really for crisis mode.
Okay. There's one more question here, follow up from Terry. She comments, good campaign. What is the state doing? And Nerissa, if that's something you could comment on from the tourism, like the CDC side of things.
From a tourism side of things, the state was very good. Visit Florida was very good in 2018, where they granted out money, like you could put in for money. And we got, for those videos we did, the series of videos that we gave to each of the outfitters so that they'd have videos to use socially or however they wanted to market themselves, because they're mom and pop businesses. I mean, these are really small mom and pop businesses, and being able to pay for a videographer and all of this is something that they don't necessarily have the bandwidth to do. So Visit Florida gave grant funding for that, which was really good. Last year with the COVID response, they got EDA, which is economic development funding, and they did a program where they paid for 80% of a campaign. So we did a campaign in state with them, and then we did it as the Treasure Coast on a statewide campaign. So we paid $20,000. We split it 3 ways for over $100,000 campaign. So Visit Florida helps with marketing, because they're charged with marketing mainly to out-of-state visitors to get people to come back to help with the rebound. So from a state standpoint, I can talk about tourism, and when you're in crisis, they're able to grant you funding that can help you extend your marketing figures. Because I don't know if you saw the first figure, we get about 43% of bed tax collected comes to our office, which is marketing, promotion, pen, pencil, staffing, and there's 3 of us here. That's what we use to market the area.
Cool. Thanks, Nerissa. And Terry, just to follow up on that question, if you when you mean state by maybe something broader than just the tourism industry, another website to check out that addresses some of the algae issues in the state of Florida, among and other water quality issues, is I think it's Protecting Florida Together. And that was the site created under DeSantis. And that's where the discussions of the Blue-Green Algae Task Force are housed within that website. So I'll just write the name here in the chat. And if I got that name wrong, if anybody's in the know, please correct me. Here's another question from Bill. Do you have discussions as to why it is measuring the water quality of the IRL and warning people when it is unsafe? As to why measuring the water quality of the IRL and warning people when it's unsafe is better than hiding the data. Titusville refuses to measure water quality and its safety in the IRL, and I am afraid to swim in it or eat the fish. So Nerissa, you alluded to a little bit of that with regards to people having the knowledge about, based on data, about where to go, where it's safe to get in the water. And I will say the health department regularly monitors our beaches and our water quality for bacteria. So that's even outside of algae blooms, but they're attuned to blue-green algae as well. So that's what I would say is check out the health department, the Florida Department of Health, and each county has a health department office, and they all have a section devoted to environmental health. And it's the Florida Healthy Beaches program is where you're going to find that information on water quality at our local beaches. And in Martin County, we have inshore areas that are tested as well. So
yeah, so to follow up on that, I don't speak to what any other destinations may or may not be doing. For us, and this is an interesting comment that was made by the former ecosystems manager. There's a 1-letter difference between engaged and enraged. And I would rather have our residents engage with us so we can have an open dialogue. So we're going to put that information out there. And when we go into crisis, it drives some people nuts, but we have a hot pink scrolling band that goes across the tourism website that says, for water quality issues, click here for information. I feel, and we feel here, that being transparent is vitally important. We're also housed within the county, and we're able to work closely with the ecosystems division. So in 2016, it was Deb Drum and Nerissa Okiye who were doing joint interviews. So I could talk about the local businesses and the tourism impact. And when they had a question about mycocystis, or they had what's the flow coming out of Lake Okeechobee, Deb Drum could talk about the technical stuff because that's her wheelhouse, not my wheelhouse. And even now, we haven't luckily had to do it. But the first thing I do in January is I call up John Mayo and I say, hey, John, what's it looking like? Are we looking like a wet summer? Like, do I need to prepare? What do we need to do? And we have a committee here at the county that gets together and we talk about these things and what's that going to look like? We have the resources here. We have a very engaged county with these issues, citizens and the staff that works here. So we try to provide as much information as we can. And that's why we did, and I'll be completely honest too, we have a separate website because we want to send people there to get the right information. Although our consumer website, if there's any issues, the pink scroll goes above both websites. But we want to take you from here to here if you're looking for this information. If you're looking for travel information and other information, we can still direct you to these businesses and this stuff here.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's great. I got another question here from Brent. I'll read it off here. Other than significant tax revenue to support marketing and advocacy efforts, how can lodging developers and local service providers, take individual actions and help ensure protection of the water quality and positive marketing for the long term?
So here, 45% of tourism tax automatically by ordinance that was voted on goes to inlet dredging and the beaches. So 45% based on our collection automatically is going to these things. And the inlet, the dredging of the inlet, whether people are for or against it, is a residential benefit for the most part. Yes, our fishing charters are able to use that and they need that for fishing tournaments and stuff, but a lot of our residents have boats and they need to get access in and out. Whereas a visitor is coming, they're going to be on a charter boat, they're going to rent something, but it's not a day-to-day use. And then the beaches, that's for cleaning the beaches, maintaining the beaches. That money comes straight off the top and goes to those divisions there. Again, the tourism tax also goes to the sports facilities that I spoke about. And then in the past, when we had the capital program, over $1 million went to Florida Oceanographic, U.S. Sailing Center, and the Wildlife Refuge, Treasure Coast Wildlife Refuge. So that's where the tourism tax is divvied up. We get about 43% from marketing. So that's kind of how it's divvied up and how it does it. You also have here in Martin County, which is fairly rare when we look at the green lodging program, you have Hutchinson Shores Resort and Spa, which is a 3-palm property. The Hutchinson Island Marriott Resort and Marina is a 2-palm property. And the Comfort Suites that was just built is working on their designation, but they are very eco-friendly. So within our county and here on the Treasure Coast, we have the most green lodging programs. And that means they're going above and beyond to meet this criteria that's put out by DEP to be able to say they are a green lodging facility on some level of a spectrum.
Cool. No, that's great to hear. Here's another comment from Bill. I am impressed with Martin County's notices and information that they publish. The FDOH, Department of Health, refuses to measure water quality in the IRL, even during the 7.2 million gallon sewer spill near Parish Park where people swim and boat. I wrote them many times. Martin County is great. Just to reiterate that the Department of Health does have a regular testing program, and the link in there provided by Nick Clifton is in the chat there. So I encourage you to check that out. I can't speak to that particular incident, however, and yeah, I don't know if that was in that particular incident, if that was also a jurisdiction of DEP as well as DOH. So, but water quality is monitored at particular points within each county, at least as far as outer beaches are concerned. So Kelly has posted a Department of Health link there for more information, and the FWC Red Tide program as well. And that's another good source of information on a regional and statewide level. Usually they're focused on Southwest Florida because that's really where pretty much our red tide consistently occurs. But you can get some good information there as well.
And I received a question through direct message. Renee asks, Nerissa, can your department do a similar meeting similar to this with other groups advocating our similar goals?
Just another video. Yeah, we speak regularly. I just spoke to the Rotary a little while ago. I spoke to the realtors. So yeah, just send us an email and we're here to let people know what it is we're doing. Some of the work we've done in the past and what's coming up in the future. Yeah, happy to, we're available however needed. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. She says it's great to hear.
Oh, so again, Bill, you'll have to check out some of those links from the health department that were provided in the chat. Bill writes that health department told me that they only test 8 beaches on the Atlantic coast and none in the IRL. They constantly refuse to test and still refuse to test. Bill, again, I don't know who you spoke to, but that's actually not correct. There's at least 4. There's several testing sites in Martin County in the IRL at the causeways and in the St. Lucie River itself. So please check out those links, and you can see not only the data but where those sites that are being tested on a weekly basis. And it is for Enterococcus bacteria, not algae. Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions so far or comments. Nerissa, is that YouTube link? Is that the tourism video?
Yeah, I sent 2 videos. So we ended up doing a series of videos as we went from 2016 through 18, or 20, yeah, through several of the crises. The first one was just, the video talks about we're open for business. You'll get to meet the locals. You'll see why we're so passionate. And then that morphed into a photo contest because we were getting, like you saw that picture of coastal living, somebody had put the happiest seaside town in some algae. And we were just getting bombarded with very, I mean, they're accurate pictures, but they're just horrific. I think when I was doing this presentation, I called Deb and I said, I'm twitching a little bit going back and looking at all of this. It was just such a awful, you know, around holistically, it was just awful that everyone was having to deal with this. So we did the photo contest, which was Here and Now Photos, and that was with Stewart, DBA, and Main Street, because the businesses down there were suffering. And that one, you submitted your pictures, they were voted on, and then they won prizes. And then in 18, I don't think I mentioned this, 18, we switched completely to a Here and Now user-generated images. So the only pictures we posted were from influencers, local photographers, whatever, and they had to be within a 24-hour, I think we extended it to 48-hour period. Like, they were here and now accurate pictures of real-time conditions in Martin County. Or if we don't have any conditions, we go dormant. And the one thing that was really sad to see, I think it was a realty company had started posting pictures, and I'm not sure, I don't know if it was a new company. I'm not sure if they were really aware. They were just trying to I think, have some positivity. So they were posting pretty pictures, and their Facebook page got so overrun, and the comments were nasty. I mean, the comments got to be really kind of mean. And they thought they were posting on our stuff, and they're like, the county is lying. And at one point I popped in, I said, we're not posting on social media right now because they're, one, we know people are just so upset right now, rightfully so. But two, if we don't have any pictures that are here and now, we're not going to go back and find a really pretty picture from before, because that's not accurate. And if anybody came down to visit and was looking for that, you're like, I saw a picture of the beach and I went to see it, and you're faced with that, then we've lied to our consumer, and we've lost all of our integrity, all of our, reason that you would come back. So that was one thing I think is very important when we're going through these environmental conditions and these environmental situations, that we take into effect that we are very upset, and rightfully so, but how are we productive with that versus just lashing out randomly? I think that's one thing that needs to be taken into consideration, because as I said, we've lost several businesses, and this was people's livelihood, and they just couldn't, nobody was coming down to visit, and they just couldn't sustain it. And that's just not what you want. You don't want your neighbors to lose their jobs. And then, of course, from a tourism standpoint, with my tourism hat, if I lose all of the outfitters and lose all the stuff there is to do, what am I promoting? Like, I don't have an accurate story to tell or an authentic story to tell.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Nerissa. Yeah. What you describe is an unfortunate dynamic that you tend to see on social media, regardless of the issue. So, and it's some very similar exchanges have been occurring that I've noticed regarding the seagrass situation and manatees, and again, it's a hot button issue that people are very passionate about, and rightly and should be passionate about.
I agree.
That's a plug for June's webinar, by the way.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think looks like we got addressed everything in there. Thanks everybody for your comments and your questions. Really appreciate it. And we'll have this recording posted on our webpage. Usually within a week or so, we get that on there. So if you want to watch it again or share it with your friends and neighbors, and then the chat will be saved as well. So if you want to write back to me if there's any links that you want to grab, I can send those to you. And I'm sorry, Nerissa, where do we access that report again?
I will email that report to you. I think if not, I can add it to Protect Our Paradise Underwater Quality, but I will send you that. And I'll send you this entire presentation deck, because the videos are embedded in that. So you can have that as a companion piece to this.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. And yeah, I guess, Lisa, I think we're good. I think that's pretty much covered. Oh, sorry. There's another comment here from Kelly about the Watershed Information Network. So yeah, thank you for that. And the other information you posted earlier. Thanks.
And I want to apologize again for my technical issues, but thank you all for joining us for our monthly webinar series. And thank you, Nerissa, for a fantastic presentation.
Yeah, thanks. That was great. And yeah, please all join us next month. And I guess we're going to cover the Connect to Protect program for septic to sewer, and then talk about manatees in June, and watershed management in July. So anyway, I hope to see you guys again.
Thank you for having me. And I think this is wonderful that we're working on all these different topics. Got to solve them together, or try to.
Exactly. Thanks, Nerissa. Great
Thank you.
presentation.